Today we study Chapter 1, Section 5. So in this class, you are going to learn how to write interval notation, how to use properties of inequalities, and how to solve inequalities. The last one, we're going to introduce how to solve combined inequalities. So first, let's look at interval notation. There are three kinds of interval notation. One is called an open interval, second called a closed interval, the third type, half open, half closed. An open interval denoted by parentheses A, comma B, parentheses. A is the lower boundary of inequality. B is the upper boundary of inequality. Okay, and the left-hand side parentheses means inequality does not include the boundary A, so we call it exclusive, the boundary number. And the same for the right-hand side parentheses. Okay, that means inequality doesn't include the upper boundary B. Okay, and then some book called it exclusive. While closed interval, okay, denoted by square brackets, A, comma B, square brackets. Okay, both left, right are closed brackets. So A and B represent the same thing. Okay, lower boundary, upper boundary, and then we need to use comma to separate the two boundaries. And left-hand side square brackets and the right-hand side square brackets, that means inclusive. Or in other words, inequality including those boundary numbers. Okay, and half open, half closed, just combine the open and the closed interval notation. We can have parentheses A, comma B, close brackets. That means doesn't include the lower boundary A, but does include upper boundary B. Or we can write as half closed, half open, okay, which is include lower boundary A, but not include upper boundary B. All right, let's try some, before we try some example, and then here we put all the interval notations and its corresponding inequality and a graph. Okay, for open interval, parentheses A, comma B, parentheses, that's equivalent to A less than X less than B. Okay, and how to do the graph? So in a number line, we first locate boundary A and then locate boundary B. If it's an open interval, we use the parentheses represent. Okay, this is same as interval notation. And then you have to shade it, the line segment between the two parentheses represent that is the data, or this is the interval notation included data. Okay. And closed interval, very similar, just square brackets. So the corresponding inequality is A less than or equals X less than or equals B. So X can equals A, X can equals B. Okay, and similarly, when we do the graph for inequality, same process. On a number line, locate boundary A, locate the boundary B, but this time, since both boundary inclusive, we have to use square brackets. Okay, put a boundary and then shaded the area between the two boundaries. So that's how to represent A less than or equals X, less than or equals B. Okay, half open, half closed, works the same way. So now let's see, what if we only have one boundary? Okay, how to represent X greater than or equals A? So only one boundary involved. Okay, so first you have to determine this A is a lower boundary or upper boundary. x is any number greater than or equals to a. So obviously a is the lower boundary, right? So you should write on the left-hand side of interval notation, since have equal sign, so x can equals a, we put the square brackets, right? And then upper boundary is not specified, and then the default is goes to positive infinity. Okay, this upper boundary, if not specified, and then the default will goes to the positive infinity. For the graphing, so since we only have one boundary, right, the other side goes to positive infinity. So on the number line, we locate the lower boundary, inclusive, so we use square brackets on the lower boundary, and then just shaded anything on the right-hand side of the square brackets, and then draw an arrow. The arrow indicate it will go to the right-hand side and limitedly, which is indicated as the positive infinity. Okay, similarly, if we want to represent the interval notation a comma positive infinity, that means the boundary not included, right? So if that is case, graph the lower boundary, we should put a parenthesis instead of square brackets, and then shaded any area on the right hand side, and an arrow indicate that goes to positive infinity. What if a is upper boundary? Okay, x less than equals a is upper boundary, and the lower boundary does not specify, and then the default will goes to negative infinity. Okay, this is a lower boundary. For the graph, very similar. On the number line, first locate boundary a, and then inclusive, so draw the square brackets, and then anything less than a, which is on left hand side of number line, we draw a line and then draw an arrow indicate anything on left hand side of a will be included. So arrow pointing to negative infinity. Okay, and similarly for, the other one. If you want to represent all real numbers, okay, so interval notation will be from negative infinity to positive infinity. Okay, that's represent all real numbers. So on the number line, there's no boundary. Just draw the line segment, and then both side, both direction, draw an arrow. This indicate goes to positive infinity. Left hand side arrow goes to the negative infinity. Okay, that's what the meaning was. The graph means. All right, so let's try some examples how to write inequality using interval notation. So first, we want to represent inequality 1 less than or equals x less than or equals 3. So in this is called a combined inequality, okay, because both boundary is given. So interval notation, lower boundary 1 need to put on the left hand side, and then comma. Upper boundary 3 need to put on the right hand side, and then open or close, we have to look at the inequality symbol have equal sign or without equal sign. So both have equal sign, we need to use square brackets to represent. So this is the interval notation, which is represent this inequality. All right. And similarly for B, lower boundary -4 we put on the left hand side, upper boundary 0 we put on the right hand side of interval notation, and then we check inequality symbol, both open, so both sides we put parentheses. C, x greater than 5, so 5 you have to determine is the lower boundary or upper boundary. X greater than 5, so any number on the right hand side of 5, right, on the number line. So 5 is lower bound or upper bound? Lower bound, right? So put 5 on the left hand side of interval notation. Right hand side, which is upper boundary, not specified, so default will be positive infinity. Infinity is always open because we do not know what the specific number that is going to be. Okay, so for infinity, it doesn't matter positive or negative, we always use parentheses. And then on the left hand side, we need to check the inequality symbol, no equal sign, so left-hand side also open. D, x less than or equals 1. So 1 is lower bound or upper bound. Think about, can you decide? 1 is upper boundary, right? Anything less than or equals 1. So if you can tell, you can draw a number line, and then if here is a 0, here's a 1, here's 2, this is 1, we locate a boundary number, right? Less than or equals is anything on the left-hand side, right? This way. So that's why the lower boundary is not specified. So the default will be negative infinity. We know infinity always parentheses, and then right-hand side, we check inequality symbol have equal sign. So inclusive, we draw square brackets. Okay, so let me just graph all of them, okay, in case. Number line, and then we put a scale on. This is a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, for example, this is number line. So first, on the number line, we locate the lower boundary 1. Okay, right here. Locate upper boundary 3, right here. And then both have equal sign, so square brackets. And then shaded anything between these two square brackets. That's my solution. Okay. Second one, same thing, a number line. This is 0, 1, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. And the lower bound is negative 4. Okay, draw parentheses, is exclusive, 0, upper bound, draw parentheses, and then shaded anything between these two parentheses. Okay, that's my solution. The C is 3, 4, 5, 6 on the number line. Greater than 5, so not include the 5, put a parentheses, and then greater than anything on right hand side. Okay, and then draw the arrow pointing to the right hand side, indicate the number goes to positive infinity. All right, that's how to write inequalities using interval notation. What about backwards? How to write intervals using inequality notation? So very similar. If given you interval notation like that, so you see both boundary indicated, right? So x must be between these two boundary, right? Left-hand side lower boundary, upper right-hand side upper boundary. And then we determine whether include the boundary number or not. So on the left-hand side, this is inclusive, so we need to add an equal sign. Right-hand side is exclusive, and then we just have the less than, no equal sign. So this is the corresponding inequality notation. And then B, if we see one boundary goes to the infinity, right, that means we only have one boundary. So we put an X on the left-hand side and a boundary 2 on the right-hand side, right? We only have one boundary. So X always need to be on the left-hand side. The boundary number always need to be on the right-hand side. And then we determine the inequality symbol. Should we use less than or should we use greater than? 2, positive infinity. So anything on right-hand side of 2 will be included in the solution, right? So x should be greater than 2 because positive infinity will be a number much, much bigger than 2, right? So inequality symbol, we should use greater than to connect x and this boundary number 2. And then both side is parentheses, so is exclusive, no equal sign. Okay, so x greater than 2 will be the corresponding inequality notation for this interval notation. And then C, both boundary number is given, so that means x must be between the two boundaries, right? Lower boundary always put on the left-hand side, upper boundary always put on the right-hand side of x. And then we determine, use what inequality symbol connect these two, right? And both exclusive, right? Both close. So we should use less than or equals for both. D, again, we see one inequality, so that means only one boundary. So we need to put x on the left-hand side, -3 on the right-hand side, and then just decide the symbol. Okay, inequality symbol, we should use less than or greater than. So -3 is upper bound. Negative infinity is a real small number, so x should be less than, right? Less than 3. And then should we include -3? Yes, this is a closed interval, so we need to put a equal sign here.